This episode, I had a really good chat with Charlie Sullivan, who took the leap from working the corporate life for many years, very comfortable, very good salary, still recognised there was a life more rewarding and fulfilling working for himself as a successful property developer.
The only way I was going to really progress in the industry was to step out of the environment I was in and go do something a bit different in another company where I could probably be a bigger fish in a smaller pond and have a bigger influence. The weird thing was I left without a job to go to. And no one could believe it. I remember I went on holiday and I was still in the company and I suddenly got locked out of all my emails. That was the ultimate goal, which was create the space to be able to do other things. But one thing I've been thinking a lot about recently is I think we stay in things too long because we just think like, this is the way it's always been, or fear of missing out, like herd mentality of like, well, if I do something different, I'm worried about what someone would think or say. And life's too short for that. You can't live like that.
Charlie, thanks for coming up, man. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
How's it going? All good?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, enjoying the heat.
Yeah, no, it's nice. We both got the shorts out today, haven't we? Yeah. So, to get started, I wanted to have you on because, one thing I kind of realised a little bit about the guests I've had on the podcast is a lot of them are kind of majority kind of being like almost not born entrepreneurs, but they started out working for themselves, being an entrepreneur quite early in their journey. And maybe they didn't really have a job or jobs beforehand. So maybe they had like one or two, or not for long as well, maybe like a year or so when they were young. And then they kind of went into business. So I wanted to get someone on who kind of made that transition a little bit later. And I know obviously you done that. Yeah. So I wanted to get your take on things, and maybe it's a little bit more relatable to some other people that are later in life, still working a job that maybe have dreams of going and working for themselves, whatever it is, whether it's property or yours happens to be property.
I'm only 36. You say later in life.
I'm making sure. But I mean, these guys, they're like, maybe had a job at like 19, and then from 20, 21, they were just like trying to figure out a way to be an entrepreneur. So tell them about your job. What job would you work in, and how was your kind of life at that time? Yeah,
so I most of my corporate career was in engineering. I studied mechanical engineering up in the Toon, Newcastle upon Tyne. I did a master's, which was a 4-year degree up there. And so when I finished that degree, I went straight into industry. And that part of the country has has a wealth of knowledge and industry in the subsea sector. So there's a lot of companies building equipment for ships, servicing the industry, the oil and gas industry up in Aberdeen and places like that. So I got my first job as a graduate design engineer, kind of within about 10 miles of Newcastle, and I lived up there and worked for probably nearly 14 years in that industry before I exited it.
Wow. Yeah. Is that the first job you had?
The first, I guess, formal, official job, take out paper rounds and being a trolley boy at the garden centre. That was my first job where I had to turn up in a suit and sit at a desk. Yeah,
and how was that for you at the time? Were you just happy to have a job? Happy to be getting paid?
I felt like the company I worked for was literally called the engineering business. Right. And it had, the 4 founding members were like very well respected and are to this day very well respected in the subsea industry as pioneering a lot of forward thinking equipment. So to be a young graduate in that environment was it was quite inspiring. It was quite an honor to kind of go and work around some really clever people. Quite intimidating at times, but I certainly felt like it was a good role out of university. I think for anyone listening, you go to university, there's certain employers you want to work for, and aside from kind of the big oil companies where some of my friends ended up working, to be working for a well-known local engineering business as one of their graduates was great. Yeah. So I was happy.
Yeah, so you went to uni, and this was like going through uni. This was the ideal job that you was looking to get once you graduated.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like anyone who goes to uni, you don't really know what you want to do, even if you're in a certain profession and you're looking for it. I think as the dust settled after I graduated, had a bit of a fun summer, like a lot of people do. It was nice to get something that was relevant to my degree, and really know that I was working on equipment that will be used in a real life environment.
Yeah. So at the time, you got the job, and was you fairly enjoying it? You enjoyed it when you first started?
Yeah, I actually started part time, so I was I was originally like what's called a draftsman, so I was doing the drawings, and I had to kind of, find a way in because there were probably a lot smarter people than me that got the really good roles, and I kind of came in on a part-time basis and worked my way up.
Right.
I've sort of always been a bit like that, a bit of a late bloomer, never been the fastest, never been the smartest, but I'm a good plodder, so yeah, just plodded my way through.
Yeah, nice. So did you feel once you had that job that uni kind of paid off, that it worked for you?
Yeah, I felt like I was on track then.
Okay.
I had career progression, security, all of these things that kind of, certainly when I was growing up, were drummed into you as to like, that's what doing an engineering degree or good degree at university will lead you to. And I knew that I could work my way up this company that was on the up, it was growing, doing some really cool things. And so I felt I was happy there. I was probably there for about 5 years before I became kind of more experienced, moved on from being a graduate. And the thing in that industry is if you're in a design role, you tend to, you learn from others, you're part of a team, and then you just become more senior, designing similar equipment and so on and so forth. And
is this something that you seen yourself doing for like almost like the rest of your life?
No, I think with engineering, if you're really kind of analytical, and if you love calculations and design, you can do that for your whole life. But I always had this, like, I loved meeting people, I loved building relationships, and so I kind of moved more into a sales role, and I joined the sales team after a few years to basically sell the equipment that I'd spent the last few years helping to design.
Yeah, okay. So then at that time, working that job, 5 years down the line, you worked your way up a little bit. What was your mindset at the time? Was you happy with what you were doing? How much time did you have in like life in general?
Yeah, I was definitely on the wheel, on the merry-go-round, feeling like I was flying through my 20s and it was just passing, and it felt like you get paid.
Did you play much, or was it a lot of work?
No, not really, to be honest. That's probably one of the things I kind of look back and think you're making ends meet, and then you get a little bit more money and your lifestyle goes up a bit. You start shopping at a different supermarket and but you never really feel like you're saving that much. And you've got all these things coming at you like, do I save for a house, or and I got married quite young, so like all these things that you want to do that cost money. I always felt like I was never really progressing, if that made sense, from a financial perspective.
Yeah, how did that feel for you? Like, obviously, you've done the whole uni thing. Yeah. I'm sure you would have obviously got the loan and everything, and then to get to that point where you feel like this is probably maybe not working for me.
I got frustrated, to be honest, because I was trying to progress faster than I was going. I wasn't sort of happy, and I was seeing roles that I wanted to be in and other people getting preferred. So I kept hitting this like glass ceiling, and eventually I ended up kind of knowing that I once heard this business leader, he spoke at like an entrepreneurs event, and he said his career path was career the verb rather than the noun. He just careered from one job to the next. And I thought, the only way I was going to really progress in the industry was to step out of the environment I was in and go do something a bit different in another company where I could probably be a bigger fish in a smaller pond and have a bigger influence, but I'd have to prove myself, So that frustration that I had, I did something with it, and it pushed me to do something. But it's sort of, I think, employment in that environment, to me, it felt like it was a drug to sort of keep you going.
Yeah.
The managers would only ever pay you a little bit more just to keep you there, keep you happy. So you're always chasing this. We used to term it like jam tomorrow.
Right, yeah.
Or you're like, hey, you can have shares in the business. One day we'll sell. Like nobody knew when that day was. So there was a lot of employees kind of trapped, feeling like, well, we're all building towards something, but not necessarily knowing when that would be.
Yeah. So then, when did you start feeling like this? Was that from the 5 year point?
Yeah, I would say.
So you stayed in there another. You say you were there 14 years?
No. So I was in the industry 14 years.
Industry? Oh, okay.
Yeah, over that time, I worked in 3 different companies.
Oh, got you.
The first one was where I really got my grounding as an engineer doing design. I moved into a sales team in that company, and it wasn't long after that I felt like I'm going to have to step out, and I just had that conviction to back myself and go find something.
Yeah. How much of that was driven by like finances?
Do you know?
Do you feel like you hit a glass ceiling there as well?
Yeah, it wasn't finance. I wasn't driven by like I need more money. It was the opportunity. I wanted to have an opportunity to learn some new things. I felt like it was a bit stifling, that environment that I was in. You know, there were cliques and there were certain... It was like decisions were made years before on where people would end up in 5 years' time. You know?
Right.
And I wasn't one of the chosen. You know, no matter how hard I was pushing. And so I didn't sit and moan about it. I remember sitting with the HR director and she said, like, what do you want to do over the next few years? I said, I want to be a director in an engineering company. And, you know, sort of saying that in my early to mid 20s.
Did you actually want to do that, or was that just something that you thought?
It felt really
right.
ambitious at the time.
Okay.
And she literally said, I think you're doing the right thing leaving. So I was like, great, you know. So that off I went, packed my bags, on my way. And the weird thing was I left without a job to go to. And no one could believe it. I remember I went on holiday and I was still in the company. And I suddenly got locked out of all my emails. Right. Because like people in the office must have been going, nah, he's telling us he's not going to a competitor, but we can't risk like letting him see information. And I get it, but I was being honest. Like I knew I needed to go. It was more important for me to make that decision. You know, like I knew I had to go. I didn't quite know what I was going to, but I knew that I was, that I had options and that things would come up. I had faith, and I just, fortunately, or however as fate would have it, however you want to term it, I ended up with 2 or 3 offers to go on to next.
Okay. So then, but was you making good money at the time? You was happy. Right. You was happy.
I think for someone who had it was kind of at the right level for the stage of my career I was at. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So going through that, what was the major thing that took you out of the industry completely?
So really, it was time started to become a lot more valuable. So
Did you have kids at this point?
Had one. So I got married at 25 to my lovely wife, Ji-Ling. She was 21 at the time. So we were quite young to get married. Mm-hmm. We've been married 11 years now. And it was probably as I was getting a bit later in my 20s, we had our first child. We had Heidi. And, you'll know what it's like. Having kids suddenly makes you look at things from a different perspective. Yeah. And at that point, I'd moved on again and I was at a different company. And I knew that was my opportunity to build something and be part of something great. And the motivation changed from, wanting to travel the world and see all these things, to actually, I'm missing things at home. Mm-hmm. And I missed my daughter's first steps. I got sent that on video while I was in Malaysia. And I ended up nearly missing the birth of my son.
Really? You just made it there in time?
I thought I'd be all right going to Malaysia 3 weeks before the due date.
You think so, innit?
And my wife went into labour in the middle of the night I think I was in Singapore. And I had to jump on a plane back. Credit to my boss, he was like, just book anything. So, I ended up having a nice business trip back. No point stressing out on the plane, So, but I got there in time, and it was little things like that where I thought my progression meant more time away from my family. It meant more stress. I was looking at people in jobs above me, and I was thinking, actually, the amount of money and benefits you get start to become linked to like company performance, which is then linked to industry performance. Mm-hmm. And in oil and gas, that can change overnight. So we were just like, nah, we need to figure out a way to make money while we sleep, build residual income, and that's where the conversation around property popped up.
So you was valuing time a lot at that point. That's kind of why you did it. Was that before you had kids?
No, I'd say after our first.
So do you reckon that's where it came from?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think I'd like to think I'd have got that feeling a lot earlier, but it took having kids for me to go, they're only going to be this age once, and don't want to miss it. So then why property? Well, the first sign of like going into property was my father was a property developer like back in the day, in like the 80s. And
what kind of projects was he doing?
He was building blocks of apartments, like small blocks around Cheshire and Greater Manchester, stuff around Stockport and Cheadle and places like that. And he did that for a period of time, but his first love was engineering. So he ended up stopping doing that and starting his own engineering company it was in the packaging industry. Mm-hmm. So he was the first person that I really knew who knew property. And the first time that it kind of piqued my interest was I was sort of sat having a beer with my best mate in our early 20s. So this was predates kids and getting married.
Yeah.
And we were doing what you do at that age. We're like talking about how we're going to be billionaires in the next few years. And my mate Rory, he's from Bradford. So he was like, right, what we need to do is buy an end terrace house in Bradford, and we'll turn it into like mixed use, you know, we'll put a shop and a flat upstairs. And I was like, that's genius, Rory, you know. So we basically wrote to the only person we knew who knew anything about property, and that was my dad.
Guys, let's speak jewelry for a minute. Meet Say It With Diamonds, an amazing jewelry company founded by a friend of mine, Charlotte, who you might have seen previously on this podcast. Say It With Diamonds have brilliant collections for everyone, male and female, and for any age. They launched a men's collection recently. They're also engagement ring specialists, and I can definitely vouch for them here, as they did make mine, which was amazing. Visit their website or go over to their Instagram page and have a look. Great quality and very affordable, but they also offer bespoke jewelry, as I mentioned, engagement rings and other diamond gifts. On their website, you'll see a member box that you can purchase for £20 for the year, which gives you 1 year's worth of free next day delivery and 10% off everything over £50. Even better, all the Money Game listeners can get a 15% off everything online using the code MONEY15, all in capitals. Don't play games with your jewelry. Get it from somewhere trusted. Had you stopped doing property at this point?
Yeah, he had a portfolio, but
right.
he wasn't actively developing.
Yeah.
But my dad was very entrepreneurial, very sparky, to the point. You know, like when you meet business people who they just rattle off little golden nuggets. And so I wrote to my dad about this idea we had, and emailed him, and he wrote this email back to me, and it was basically like, right, son, you know, property is a great route to wealth. You make your money when you buy, not when you sell.
Why was you writing? Was he that away?
Yeah, I think I was at uni. I'd graduated. I was in this job. I was probably at work, to be honest, at the time, and I was probably thinking about it. And because I think my email signature was like, "Best regards, Charlie Sullivan, graduate design engineer." So I must have been at work. It was on a break though, if anyone wants to know. But yeah, and I mean, who knows? You know, maybe it was one of those things that, like, I'm so glad I did write to him, because he wrote back this letter that I look back now, and it was, you know, it's this letter filled with wisdom and golden nuggets from like a father passing down that kind of generational knowledge, and and I didn't really understand the weight of that letter at the time. And he sent me that on a Thursday, and you know, 3 days later on the Sunday, I got a call. I was actually in church, and I got a call. I went out the service, and it was a police officer, and he basically said, your dad's been in an air crash, and he's died. So you know, that was a big turning point for me as a young man. I was 23 at the time, and it was his own helicopter. You know, he got to his 60s, decided he wanted to fly helicopters, and you know, credit to him, he had a good laugh. And but yeah, there was a mechanical fault on board, and just got into difficulty landing it, really, and it was very quick. So from that moment onwards, you know, my life changed a lot. It was a big event for me to sort of go through, quite traumatic. But I remember at my dad's funeral, Rory coming up to me and just saying, "Don't forget that letter that your dad sent." He said, that'll be a blueprint for you one day to build something. And I just sort of put it in a drawer, went off into my little engineering career, and when kids came along and we started to talk about property again, I dug it out, and to this day I reference it, you know, I quote it, or I talk about it, and you can see it in our journey, you know, and the way that we set up our business, Capstone Fox, and so I cherish that, you know, those things, and it's made me go and find wisdom in other people that, you know, I can't get from my dad anymore. So, you know, I'm grateful for that really, because it's made me bolder, and kind of sometimes you've got to get over yourself to ask for help, don't you? But it forced me to do that. So as much as I didn't want something like that to happen at the time, it did. Like, good things can come from those events.
Yeah, no, I'm really sorry to hear about that. So would you say at the age 20, 23, was you entrepreneurial at all?
Yeah.
How much do you reckon you took from your dad?
Like, and
did you realise that probably later on in life rather than at the time?
I think I respected my dad and his opinions, and he was, you know, as a young man, I looked up to him a lot. So, you know, he was really proud that I'd gone to uni and studied mechanical engineering, was following in his footsteps. And I do look back sometimes and think, why didn't he push me more to just go start a business and I'll help you out.
Because that's what he done, right?
Yeah,
well.
that's what he'd done. I mean, he'd gone to uni and done engineering, but I would say when it comes to kind of those entrepreneurial traits, like he had them all, you know.
Yeah.
And in many ways, he wasn't like the most sociable. Like,
Right.
you know, if you came around to our house for Sunday lunch, my dad's like attention
He'd
span.
be in the back somewhere.
He'd start hoovering when he was done. You know, he'd get the hoover out and like you'd be like, oh, it's time to leave. You know.
Yeah.
So like he was a bit socially awkward in some regards, but
Yeah.
a brilliant businessman and so somebody that I guess invested and sowed a lot of good seeds into some early life lessons that I learned.
Yeah, no, interesting. So, and what did you see growing up from your dad? What do you remember seeing?
Hard worker.
His life, hard worker. Yeah.
I often didn't see him a lot. He was out 6 a.m, back 6 at night. You know, and he only worked at the bottom of the garden. But he loved work. He loved business. I remember holidays. We'd go to North Wales, and you know, my mum would be there the whole time, and my dad would be at work, and then he'd come, and even though it was his own business, he was very committed to it, and and he was an ideas guy. Like he just had lots of mad ideas and little inventions.
Being where you are now, what do you think about that? Because I actually had a conversation about this not too long ago about. I think everybody now is so like obsessed with like work-life balance, right? And obviously, I know there's some things that are important, and spending time with your kids. But I think even maybe more so as a dad, do you feel like it's important for kids to see their dad working a lot and being out, rather than being at home a lot?
It's an interesting question because I think it's really important to be present, like 100% present when you're a father, you know. Yeah. And so like I play fight with my kids. I try and engage as much as possible. I try and put the phone down when I'm around them, you know. And my kids still say, you know, Daddy, get off your phone. Like, you know, breaks your heart, doesn't it? Yeah. And they get you like that at times. Yeah. But at the same time, I think you know, I've got this thing like I enjoy work. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think you need something to do as outside of just just family stuff. Otherwise, you go mad. So I think there is a balance of I want to show my kids that it's important to work hard and apply yourself and be consistent and disciplined about certain things, but also it's all right to just like cut loose and have fun and you know and break that routine sometimes. So
I just feel a little bit like I think with the moms I think it's probably a little bit more about quantity of them being there a lot. But I'm starting to sway towards with dads, it's maybe more just about quality. When you are there, be there. Yeah. But I think it's good for them to see you being away and working. Yeah. And I think that you can kind of, they look up to you like that. If you're out doing things and getting things done and they see that and maybe see you like a superhero type figure rather than someone who's there all the time. I think
lockdowns definitely made a lot of dads very aware of just like having so much time at home can really affect you. You know, I know there's days where I'm like, I've just got to like get out of the house. You know, and I know like my wife feels the same at times, but in some ways I do feel that we're set up, you know, we're sort of set up a bit differently. Mm-hmm. Like I admire and respect so much of what she takes on and handles. But it's like she in many ways is far better equipped at that than me.
Yeah, that's something I realised as well. My missus is so good at handling the kids for long periods of time. Yeah, like they'll have way more fun with me in an hour, but I can't. Like if I'm there, if I'm looking after them for like the whole day, it starts getting tough, where she could just do it for the whole day. Yeah, I have no problems.
I think there's a time like my time will come with my kids as they get older as well. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like
my 2-year-old's creeping over to the dad side. So he was mum side the whole time.
Yeah, and I remember an old colleague saying that he's like his son had turned 10 and he was like, the next 10 years of mine, you know.
That's actually how I feel.
Yeah, and he was like taking he said he lived on a farm and he was like taking his kid on quad bikes, tearing up all the grass, and his wife was going nuts. And he was like, you know, but this is it. Like this is what little boys and girls love to do. And so you play to each other's strengths, don't you? Yeah. And I know when, you know, it's been too much on G, and like I've just got to like pick up the slack. And but it's a team thing, isn't it? Of course. It's teamwork.
Yeah. So we're going off topic there. So we was talking about so whenever the work-life balance, but at the time, it's entrepreneurial things from passing down from my dad. So you feel like you picked some up?
Yeah, I think my dad used to say he was a late bloomer. And that's something that I think, I was quite small as a kid. And it was like only when I turned 18, I kind of grew, I didn't shoot up. I'm only like 5'10", maybe 5'9". I'll go with 5'10". And I've seen that in my own business life, even going into like an entrepreneurial pursuit. Like I've done industry and corporate world first, but I always knew there was this itch, this thing that I wanted to do.
Right. And maybe you think that came from your dad?
Yeah.
Kind of in the background that you didn't really realise at the time.
But I think that's okay as well. Like there's so many transferable skills I brought over from being in working in a business in the corporate world. Yeah. Because and a lot of people don't have that. And I say to people who are in full-time jobs and they're like, how can I be any good at property or and actually you'd be surprised. Like there's some advantages that you'll have over people who've only ever been in property or been on the tools. Like you sometimes think, so-and-so is a builder, therefore they'll make a phenomenal property investor. And I'm sure there's a lot of that practical side. Yeah. But, being able to run teams, financial accounts, build like strategy documents and things like that, all of that world and seeing how a business operates has been great now that I'm running my own businesses. Yeah.
All right, so going on to now where you're at the point of making this transition.
Yeah.
How did it look? Did you have any fears about doing it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like, jumping off the cliff. It's always scary.
Is that how it felt?
Yeah, it felt like a friend of mine always uses this phrase, like, just jump off the cliff and build the plane on the way down. It felt a bit like that. Like, and
Simon on the podcast that just came out today, he obviously used the analogy of burn the boats.
Yeah.
But that one's a bit more extreme, your one.
So for me, it got to 2018. I'd been part of an engineering company for 4 years, worked my way up, I had shares in this business, and we floated on the London Stock Exchange. And it was an amazing, pinnacle moment, for the business and for my career, to be a shareholder in that business, part of the senior management team, and a big contributor to helping us get to that figure. And I knew within a few months after that my next chapter was coming, and I needed to change things up. And many people at the time within the business were getting new roles. It was exciting. Right. We suddenly became a PLC. You get given a war chest. It was like, here's a load of money, go buy other businesses and do, and yet I just felt like I'd run my course, I'd served my purpose and I had other things to do. So 9 months after we floated, I left the business and relocated my entire family to Cheshire. Took on a big house bill.
Is that where you're from originally?
I'm originally from Cheshire, and so it was a big thing because I think people have this idea that in property you'll build up your income to the same level as your salary, and then you'll have this nice smooth transition and move over. And actually, I sort of got to the point where I wasn't quite.
You had no properties, right?
I did. We'd started building stuff from 2017.
Okay.
But I wasn't comfortable by any means. I wasn't at the point where it was like, okay, now's the right time to leave. But I just in my spirit, in my gut, there was this little quiet voice that was like, go, and I just followed my conviction, went for it, and backed myself, and G supported us, supported me the full way. We started the company together. It was a family thing, and from that point on,
what was she doing?
So initially we were both viewing properties, doing numbers.
But beforehand, was she working?
Yes, she was in banking, so she worked for Virgin Money, which prior to that was Northern Rock.
Right.
So, she was in financial services, and comfortable jobs, great prospects, but there was just this hunger for something more.
So she quit her job as well?
Yeah.
Same time?
Not long after me, pretty soon after, yeah.
Okay, so she's bought into this idea.
Oh yeah,
well.
We were like done. We just went, let's go for it.
Okay.
So it's scary.
So you two both had a job, both quitting, and you had 2 kids or 1?
We had our second at that point, and the third.
Scary times, man.
Yeah, it was. And do you know, the scariest thing was it's like you get conditioned over a period of time. You turn up to work at a certain time, you go home, and you get a paycheck at the end of the month, and you have this sense of secure. And actually, to have that taken away, that safety net, was like you felt really vulnerable. And the hardest thing in that first year was just constantly reminding ourselves that we can do this. We can get back to those heights, and once we're there, then sky's the limit, really.
So was that your first step, to get that income through property to what you was getting for your job?
Yeah, well, no, the first step was $2,000 a month to cover the bases. So
Yeah.
you know, gas, electric, mortgage.
And where was you at the time of quitting?
Not much beyond that, to be honest. Yeah.
No, I mean property wise.
Oh,
You wasn't at zero because you had something.
so yeah, we'd probably got to kind of 5 to 10 properties by the time we were thinking about leaving. Maybe we'd just gone beyond that, but
You must have been too far off $2,000.
yeah. So I think we were probably just over 2 on the way to 4 because we had a
Okay.
couple of HMOs in the pipeline, but they weren't done yet.
Yeah.
So it was like we were doing it in faith that they were going to come through. And
So you doing these while you was working a job?
yeah.
How did you? Where did that come from? When did you start property? Was that obviously stem from your dad?
So that was that initial conversation with him, and then it was 10 years later when the kids came along, we started to look at, okay, we want to build a side hustle, side business, and that's where we started to read around property, did some courses and things like that, and you know, similar to a lot of people, we sort of got on that train, if you like, to financial freedom.
Yeah. How did you go about getting educated in property?
We went through a company that was called Asset Academy. You know, responded to a Facebook ad, went to one of these hotel rooms, and we just kept going. You know, kept turning up, and in a way, like I look back at it, I have no regrets over the way that we do it. I think the property education space has changed a lot since we did it, and it's not been that long. You know, we're only talking over the last few years, but you know, there were quite a few companies that had a similar model, and it was a big investment. And in some ways, I think if it had been a smaller amount of money, you know, like we probably spent over 20 grand to start with on the education, and we justified it as well, you know, more was spent on a uni degree, and if it can teach us to do one flip that pays back that money, then at least we can kind of cover the costs. And
so you was paying this out after you left your job, the education?
No, so 2 years before we started.
When you actually started your whole portfolio. Okay, cool.
So this is what triggered the kind of that process, and
So at the time when you was buying them properties and you was working a job, had it ever crossed your mind of going full time into property?
It was always the goal. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, actually, when I say that, I really enjoyed my job. You know, it was a great job. I had a lot of freedom, great team, really. You know, our CEO was like one of the youngest. I think he was the youngest CEO on the stock market, on the AIM market at the time, and so it was like it was exciting. You know, it was a great environment. The goal was, let's replace my salary and G's salary, and let's just see how we feel at that point. And as soon as we started getting close to it,
you wanted the option.
Yeah, but let's see if I do this for free.
Okay.
You know, and you know, the closer we got to it, was like, I can't. They couldn't pay me enough to stay in the end because time became so valuable.
Yeah. So when you done, did you feel like, how long before you felt liberated?
Financially, or
just in general? Because obviously I know you would have had your panics and fears at the beginning, so it probably didn't sit as comfortable. When did you start feeling like, I definitely made the right decision?
I really hope you're enjoying the show. I would just like to ask for 1 minute of your time to tell you about my sponsor whose support makes the show possible, CPC Finance. CPC Finance is a finance broker that specialises in sourcing and packaging a wide range of property funding. You name it, from buy-to-lets to commercial properties, auction investments, property developments. They are everything you'd want as a finance broker working for you on your property deal. They're extremely experienced. They know their market extremely well, which means they can move quickly. They're on the ball. They've been in the game for 30 years, which has enabled them to, one, build very strong relationships with a variety of lenders, which as an investor is super important, especially when things don't go to plan. Deals in certain situations aren't straightforward, which is often the case. They are bespoke specialists. And two, they have a brilliant understanding of all types of property investing. They know the strategies, they understand deal structures. There isn't anything these guys haven't seen. You know, they're seasoned pros. So if you're someone looking for property finance of any kind, go to cpcfinance.co.uk, and on the homepage you can schedule in a call at whatever time or day suits.
I would say mid to late 2019, when I had a few months of doing it and the dust had settled, and I was like, okay, this is okay. And then like at the end of the summer, I sold all my shares in the company, which happened to be at the height of the value, which is like, which is brilliant. And I had no there was no inkling that it was a gut thing. And I looked at it and thought, I'm no longer part of the business, so I can't influence the growth and change. I'm not confident necessarily that it's going to grow at the same rate it has. So again, I back myself. I'll sell all the shares and put them into my property projects. And that's where I think my confidence started to grow then.
Yeah.
It's like, I can do this. I've been doing it now for 6 months. Nobody's paid me. And I'm all right. I'm still here, still breathing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, nice. So then before you got that money from selling your shares, what was your strategies for doing property? What was the plan?
We had to raise investor finance.
Okay.
Because we didn't have loads of savings.
Yeah.
So we were initially did whatever we could to get the first few properties over the line, and then utilise them as track record and tell everybody, I was in sales and strategy, and I knew the power of networking and just talking to people. And at the end of the day, people buy into you as a person, and people backed us and supported us. And it started with friends, family, people who had relationships.
Did you just reaching out, picking up the phone and reaching out?
Yeah, just write a list of 20 people that might have 25
Was it easier
grand.
than you thought or harder?
It wasn't easy, but it was definitely easier because initially I thought...
Then you thought?
Yeah, I thought, I don't know enough people that would invest. And I wasn't convinced. And then once I proved out the model, and I realised, actually, this is a great deal for both.
Yeah.
They're getting a great return for not having to do anything, and it's enabling us to build and renovate homes for other people, and it's win-win.
Yeah. So how did you structure those?
So they were loan agreements. We now do joint ventures with different people. So
loan agreements, you get a project needs X amount. You get that loan from someone, pay them a fixed return.
Yes.
What would you do? Do a
So it would either obviously the amount of money is important, the loan term. So it would always be a year, the loan.
Yeah.
But I would have that conversation with people to say, look, we're looking for long-term partners, so we'd look to renew it. So trying to buy us more time.
Okay. So you're recycling money and at the end of the year, paying them back.
Yes. Yeah. So we had to be really aggressive about the deals that we were doing to make sure we got the returns.
And you went back home as well. Did you get a lot of help with the kids from family?
Well, actually, we moved from being in the northeast where we were near to G's parents and mum and dad down to Cheshire where it was just my mum.
Okay.
So we've always had help, where needed. But as you know, it's a couple. It's great to have a couple of hours reprieve.
Because you guys would have been you're building time, aren't you? You would have been working like pretty much all the time.
Yeah, it was chaos because we were doing renovations on the house we were living in and things like that. But you just, I just saw it as an adventure. Yeah. Like a painful one sometimes, but you don't really, I look back now and think it wasn't that bad. The early starts and the hundreds of viewings that we were doing, like it was worth it.
Yeah. How was it? I mean, a lot of people advise not to do it, but you've done it. How is it working?
Property?
No. How's it working with your wife as a business partner?
Great. I think we've got very different strengths, and I think what you've got to be really clear on is who's doing what and when and what the expectations are. In the last few years, I've definitely, pushed more of the business forward because we've got 3 kids under 8. So, G's been pregnant for most of it. So it's hard to sort of expect her to be as active in the business. At the same time, she's awesome at the home. And it works well. We bring different strengths, and it's just trying to find out what you're both good at and delegate the other stuff to other people.
Yeah. Okay, so the plan was to hit that 2K mark.
Yeah.
How long before you hit it?
We actually hit that in the first 6 months. So that was the goal, and we did it with 1 HMO and 4 buy-to-lets, and we put loads of offers in, and it came to like October, November, and I think people around that time of year start going, I just want it sold for Christmas. Right. And I remember we had a 2-week period where all those offers got accepted. That was a stressful 2 weeks.
I can imagine.
The first one was exciting, like great, this works, and then when you keep getting the calls, you think, I've either offered too much here or something's going on. So we got to that pretty quick, and then it was just like, right, let's double it, let's move on. And then, once we kind of felt like we covered the bases and our income, we could start to choose, projects that interested us more than ones that were like we needed for survival. Yeah.
So was there goals beyond that 2K goal before you hit it?
So the idea was just keep doubling it.
I'll keep doubling it. Okay, cool.
And that hasn't continued every 6 months, but it got to a point where we were like, okay, it's manageable, and we can also now we can take the foot off the gas a bit and give ourselves time to do things during the day that aren't necessarily property related. Because that was the ultimate goal, which was create the space to be able to do other things.
Yeah. So how, at that point now, where you've doubled it maybe a few times, how was like your lifestyle at the time, so the time with the kids, was it as you imagined?
As in, is the lifestyle?
Yeah, so do you know, you missed your kids' first steps.
Yeah.
You was almost late to your son.
My son's
But for your son.
Yeah.
So then you obviously had this idea that you want to move away, work for yourself, in order to kind of stop that from happening.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you got to be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So did it
I've
match?
got it now. I've got it
match?
now, and you know, it used to be quite nice to go to Dubai for 3 days and get a good night's sleep, and I don't do that anymore. But yeah,
but was life
great.
as you imagined? What
I wouldn't change it now at all. Like one of the things, it's the simple things that we really enjoy doing. So G and I will walk the kids to school together.
Yeah.
You know, it's not often you see both parents at the school gates, and like it's on those journeys that we have conversations with the kids and each other that, you know I'll take on and remember for the rest of my life. And it's those little moments where you can build into them and just not feel like you got the pressure of having to shoot off to the office or anything else. So we try and have those little things, because they're the things of value for us. Yeah,
that's it's true. It's just small things, isn't it? Because we even had a retired footballer on last.
Yeah.
And I just said to him, like, what's the pros of retiring? And he was like, just the small things, like doing a school run that you don't get to do when you're always working.
Yeah.
It's the small things that you kind of miss out on, that you probably cherish when you get to the point of where you was at. So okay, so cool. So you was obviously happy with how it was. One question I want to ask though. So you obviously at the time, did you have the mindset of property being fairly passive?
Yeah, well that's how it's been sold to me.
I thought so. Yeah. So would you say that's not really a reality? But no, could it be passive? But you keep going, don't you?
Yeah, what I've found is that I actually really enjoy working, and I enjoy the creative stimulation of doing deals and structuring things. So, you know, if it was just a case of I just had a big portfolio that I never had to bother with, and like I'd be bored. You know, I don't want to sit on a beach for the rest of my life. You know, I think when I hear that, I think, well, I probably just need a week. You know, and then I'll be like, what's next?
You're itching to go back, aren't you?
I definitely have properties that are more passive than others. So some require...
Like what? Which ones are the more passive?
My bread and butter buy-to-lets in the northeast that are just, you know, low value, and low risk.
Management agencies.
Managing agent deals with them. It's predictable what comes in every month.
Yeah.
And they just tick over. Whereas, you know, some of the HMOs, you've got tenants moving in and out. You've got more damage, wear and tear, energy bills, all of that stuff. And
do you have management companies for the HMOs?
Yeah, we have managing agents for all the properties.
But even then, you still work still finds you on them HMOs.
Oh yeah. Sometimes they just forward an email. Say, what do you want to do like this? I'm like, that's what I pay you for. Because ultimately we want to focus on finding the deals and the money, and everything else kind of we delegate, you know, and pay for, because that's where the value is.
So would you, for someone who's looking for more of passive income, would you not advise HMOs?
I personally wouldn't. I think there's an attraction to them because they're higher cash flow, but there's a lot of hidden costs as well that often don't get covered in the spreadsheet.
Like what?
Well, a lot of people don't factor in sort of holding costs during the refurb, utility bills and things like that. You're still going to pay for that. They don't factor in void periods. It's hard to predict that. Don't factor in tenant.
All HMOs with utilities included?
Not all of them. I mean, you know, a lot of like student ones are, but all of ours are professional, working professionals in them. So we cover all the bills.
You cover them.
But like, you know, the tenant fine fees. So every time you change over, get a new tenant, you know, you charge the percentage of the rent for that month. So all of these things have an impact. And sometimes I think the true cost or the true profit that you're getting is different to what you think on that nice fancy spreadsheet at the beginning. I think a lot of people now are moving more towards social housing deals that are perceived as a bit more passive, because
probably it's less income, all right, but just
guaranteed.
Guaranteed,
guaranteed, but you're leaving more in the deals. And then if you want you know, bit more of a up and down life. People are going into holiday lets and serviced accommodation, which, you know, in itself is the Wild West. You know, it's been,
Have you ever done any of those?
yeah. So we've got a couple at the moment, and you know, I like to sort of trial and test different areas and strategies, because I think if you can unearth a little gem somewhere, and then you can just double down and buy other things in that area before others find out about it.
Yeah.
So we're trialing that. We've got one at the minute that is predominantly for contractors.
Okay.
So people coming up to work. So it's structured similarly to a holiday let, and it's available on Airbnb and things like that. But we often get block bookings for
longer
people
term
working during the week. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
As you all know, it's been a turbulent time for travel, with the booking process in particular causing feelings of frustration and anxiety amongst travellers, whether that's for business or for those holidaying with their families. With that being said, I would like to introduce you to our sponsor, Love to Travel, who are a luxury travel company specialising in tailor-made holidays for each individual client. Whatever your preference might be, Love to Travel will be sure to meet your requirements. As an ambassador of Love to Travel, but also from personal experience, I would definitely recommend them to take away all the work and stresses of booking your travel. For me, the personal service stands out. They're contactable at any time, email, over the phone, WhatsApp. They also cover a variety of holiday types: beach, ski trips, safari, sporting holidays, and also have an additional service such as private jet and yacht charters, as well as restaurant reservations. No request is too complex. All holidays are fully ATOL insured to ensure you can book with complete confidence. Get in contact by visiting their website, www.lovetotravel.co.uk.
So then you've got the HMOs, you've done some buy-to-lets, done a few holiday lets. Kind of recently, would you say you moved on to more developments?
Yeah, the last couple of years. So I don't know whether it was lockdown. I was sat at home and went, "Well, go on then. Let's."
Oh, was that when your first one came in?
Yeah, so we did
Like
the chapel in North Wales that we're doing. That came sort of mid to late summer in 2020, and the Beeswing Hotel, which is the big Victorian 3-story pub up in the northeast, that came like mid 2020.
Yeah.
And both of them, I wasn't looking for either of them really.
Really?
Both of them came through different avenues, and yeah, like I like the idea of the challenge, you know, the opportunity, and just, you know, I've sort of trying to trust my gut a bit more on stuff, and you don't always get it right.
Yeah.
But you know.
Yeah. How have you gone about
along the way?
Yeah. Have you gone about not, or have you gone about not tying up too much of your capital? So if you really used the capital that you got from selling the shares,
yeah,
was you able to just keep recycling that?
So we now invest like a lot of our own funds in our deals, but we've also got a great group of investors at different
You're still
levels.
raising finance?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mix. You know, I'm a big believer in having skin in the game. You know,
Yeah.
if I'm going to ask somebody to invest in my project, I want to be willing to do the same. I think that carries a lot of weight.
Yeah. So when you can, you always try and put some in?
Yeah.
No matter how much it is?
Well, it depends on the deal. Like,
Yeah.
because some investors are like, they want to invest in one particular deal. So you can line it up for that deal. But if it's a big project, sometimes I'll have to move on it quickly and secure it. And that's where I'll use my own funds.
Yeah. No, interesting. So then you've got the ones you spoke about planning. Have you completed a development yet?
So
Or the ones still in planning?
No, so they're all out of planning.
Okay.
The bigger ones that we're doing, we haven't completed yet.
Right.
We're doing 5 apartments at the chapel in Wales. That should be complete later this year. And we're doing 12 apartments up in Gateshead. And again, that'll be later this year / early next year.
Yeah. Did you have many reservations about going from you doing buy-to-let HMOs and then going into development?
Yeah, I knew there'd be a stretch and a leap, but it was
How did you cover that?
Tried to buy property that was, well, low value first of all, so I wasn't overexposed at the beginning.
You had a lot of margin.
Well, yeah, that was the idea, and then obviously everything went bonkers in lockdown.
Yeah.
So we've taken a hit on the cost of labour and materials, and I knew as well, like the lessons we'd learn while doing them would be really valuable, and so long as we could get through them and make a small profit on each, like what we could take forward into the next projects would be really valuable.
Yeah.
So.
Have you sold any, or is it always your aim to hold them?
Yeah, typically we've held on to everything that we've bought. I am selling some at the moment as performing assets, some HMOs.
Okay. Is that because of the stress of?
No, they're really good performing HMOs. I just, again, I feel like we've bought some we've done full renovations on, some we've done smaller renovations on, and these ones we've been made really good offers as performing assets, and it feels like the right time to sell after having a few years of profit, and then being able to make, you know, an uplift on the profit when we sell that I can recycle into other projects going forward. So it's just a case of kind of looking at keeping some things, selling others, and I'm more confident now that I can repeat what we've done in the past and do it better.
Yeah. So we spoke a little bit off camera about doing something else, maybe outside of property, going into a business of your own. Is that something that you're maybe trying to plan for at the minute? Yeah,
well, in the last few months, I've taken steps just to create a bit of margin and a bit of space in my life, because, you know, it's hectic, young family, businesses, projects, and other commitments. So I'm trying to hive off a bit of time, headspace really to think.
So would you say property is quite time consuming?
Yeah.
Let's say you stop now, you took on no more projects, you just had what you had.
Yeah.
How much time is it going to take for you to like run those?
I think at the moment I can probably do it 20 hours a week, you know, and I fill my time with other things as well. But, you know, I've also built up like a consultancy business, so that's literally time, exchange of time for money. It's not necessarily the quantity of time I've got to give it. It's almost like the quality of decisions I've got to make in the time that I give it.
Right.
So I'm learning to try and focus on the things I'm better at, and look to other people for them to do things they're better at. So I brought on some help recently on like admin stuff, and literally just sort my life out, help me get organised on things that stress me out, and prevent me from doing the things that I really enjoy doing and I'm best suited to. So I'm trying to find my position on the pitch, so to speak.
Yeah. So then, and you do some joint ventures, right, with investors?
Yeah. So on the two developments, they're both joint ventures with different investors.
Okay. Yeah. So how passive would it be for your partners? Do you do everything for them?
No. So they're structured in both of them. We're both active. So on
so they're developers as well.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's not a case of like one's bringing the money and one's doing all the work.
Cool.
Yeah,
You're both.
Yeah, in both cases, there's active roles for both, and then active financial input for both as well. So.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So so looking into the business side of things, what's made you kind of go down that route?
I think having the background in the corporate world that I do, I've seen the power of sort of building a brand and a business over time. And in order to do that, like, property's fantastic in many ways. You know, there's some great people in the industry, great opportunities, but it's a really good way to tie up a large amount of money for long periods of time. And I have this desire to build a business that, you know, can be outside of property.
I have it as well, you know.
Or can be in it. But I'm excited about the prospect of doing something like that, because I really think, you know, to build a cash cow, I've just got a feeling it's probably not going to be doing the things I'm doing at the moment. And I still think I'll do them. I still think I'll build and I'll invest and I'll buy property. But I think it'll become a smaller part of what I'm doing.
Have it as like a bit of a base for you, a bit of foundation in your life.
Yeah, somewhere to park funds, because it depends how you look at it. A lot of people are pushing to find I want to buy something, refurb it, refinance it, pull all my money out and all of this, and it's like, what if you put all that time and effort into building a phenomenal business in something else, and then just parking cash in ready-made things that you can buy in bulk at a discount, and not having to deal with, you know, building sites or, you know, refinancing mortgages and all of that stuff. So it's only in the last sort of year that I've really been thinking that through, because we're in a position now where we can kind of assess those next steps going forwards. We're not like chasing that cash flow figure like we were. And so, as I say, I've tried to create that breathing space to go, okay, give myself 6 months to think about where could that business idea be and what could it be.
Yeah. So the mindset you're in now, speaking about what we just spoke about there, let's say you go back to when you just sold your shares in the company and you had that cash sitting there, would you have still gone down the same route, done property? Or would you have, if you had the same mindset you have now, would you have gone into a business? Yeah,
I think I'd have split it.
Okay.
I think I was all in on property at that point, because it was just, I was so... Do
you reckon you could have done both though, if you split it?
Well, my fear was that I needed, property was the only thing I could do to be able to create the income.
Right.
And again, because I'd never really sort of started something outside of it, or not been in a office environment working for someone else, I didn't have the confidence to go start a business. But yeah, I think if I were to go back now, I'd probably go, focus on the property, but create a day a week where you can, put some ideas together for something that could be totally different.
Yeah. So how far are you off from doing something, you think? Is it just a thought right now, or? Yeah,
there's a few things like that I'm thinking on, but I don't want to rush it either, because I think once you get that hunger, once you kind of get the bit between your teeth on it, you want to go for it, don't you?
Yeah.
And I want to be sure that it's something that I really believe in and I'm passionate about. And I would say so far I haven't quite found that feeling.
Yeah. So kind of a summary of the whole kind of journey from that, especially in the transition.
Yeah.
Would you advise it for everyone, or do you think some people are just suited to just do it, work a job and kind of stay down that route?
I don't think it's for everyone. I think that's okay. I think there's this pressure that you have to be this, entrepreneurial, figure, and you sort of, and actually, like, there's people out there who have amazing careers working for others, and there's, like I said to you before we jumped on, the things I miss about the environment.
Yeah.
That it's a lonely journey building your own businesses, and that aspect of it can be tough, and in some ways kind of working for someone else has a lot of benefits, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a worse life or less options. Like it's just a different route. So I wouldn't say everybody has to kind of push for that. I think you've got to find your fit, really. And if you're not happy in the position or the role or the thing that you're doing right now, like one thing I've been thinking a lot about recently is I think we stay in things too long because we just think like, this is the way it's always been, or fear of missing out, that herd mentality of like, well, if I do something different, I'm worried about what someone would think or say. And life's too short for that. You can't live like that. You've got to like press on and do something that you're going to look back on one day and say, do you know what? Even though it went belly up, at least I flipping had a go. And most of the time, the fear of it going wrong is far greater than the actual reality of it.
Definitely.
And I work with people now who are like, handing the notices in, or they're like sacking their boss, and I'm cheering them on. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying be reckless, but I'm saying you can do it. And like part of my role in helping them and coaching them, working with them, is like I know they can get the knowledge stuff from property. Like that's the easy bit. The hard bit is the mental battle of every day waking up going, you are actually able, qualified, capable of doing this, and keep going. So that excites me. I think when people take the road less travelled, there's a great poem that says two paths diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled, and that made all the difference.
Right.
And I've thought about that a lot in my life when I come to these crossroads. It's easy to take the well-trodden path, but it's a lot more exciting to take the ropier one.
Sure. So what advice would you give to someone that's maybe sitting on the fence for a while?
I think speak to people that have done what you want to do and are on that process and on that journey, and ask for their honest opinion, like in terms of count the cost. What's it going to cost you? Not just financially, but in terms of your time and your mental energy and things like that. And be patient. It might not happen in a year. You might need a 2 or 3 year plan. But if you can work and be diligent and consistent about working towards that, you'll probably find it actually ends up happening quicker. But you sort of have to have that marathon mentality.
Yeah.
If you just think, I just need to be there in 6 months, you'll probably give up in 1 or 2.
Yeah. So you did yours in 6 months, right? But did you have that plan for a lot longer?
The reason it was 6 months was, and I remember now, it was because we had Eddie, our second, coming. So G was due to give birth, and so it was like, what's the time scale? Well, when she goes on maternity leave. Yeah. So that was where the 6 months came from.
Well, that's interesting. At that point, you could have easily said, no, I'm going to save for another 6 months until my baby's done. Yeah. Until my baby's here, and then it's probably a little bit less risky or whatever. But you still just quite ruthless with it, and you just
I'm one of those people that like, and it pains me to say this, but I've realised it in my own character. Like, if you give me 3 days to do something, I'll probably do it on the 3rd day, right? But give me 3 minutes, and it'll be the same task will be done in 3 minutes.
Yeah, I've heard a lot.
And I feel like when I left corporate world, I forced myself to go out and get it. And actually, many people delay that time frame by often staying in the jobs too long.
Yeah.
And it's this battle of like, well, I don't have the time because I have to work 9 to 5. And really, you know that if you had the time, you'd get there a lot quicker. And that was my justification for jumping, was I'm going to light a fire underneath me, and I better flipping get a move on.
Yeah.
So,
So you think you probably wouldn't have done it, right, if you kind of tried to do them at the same time?
yeah.
You
Yeah, well, I tried it, and it took a bit longer. So
Yeah.
eventually I just went, right, I'm done, let's go. And it felt early, that's the thing. It will often feel a bit too soon.
Yeah.
But in my experience, that's when you got to do it.
Yeah. No, nice. Cool. I got a quick fire round for you.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's supposed to be quick.
I've not seen any of
But
these.
it's usually
so.
slow. Yeah, no, I know what that's. Do you know? No, sometimes with guests as well, they tend
It's
to.
not very quick.
No, they tend to answer. They tend to answer my quick fire questions in the podcast.
Right. Okay.
Sometimes you kind of done this as well.
Have I? Okay. Do you want me to change my answer?
No. Still do it because
know.
it might be something else.
Go on then.
If the government banned you from buying property, you're not allowed to buy anything whatsoever property related. What would you put your money into?
Really good question. Probably other people's businesses. I'd want to buy into as a shareholder in businesses that I thought were really exciting. So where I could maybe add strategic value, on the board, and find sparky, creative, exciting entrepreneurs and say, look, how can I help you grow? What do you need?
What kind of businesses do you think?
I think anything. And this is the thing. I'm open to different ideas, but if it stacks on paper, if I can believe in it.
But like an industry, just name one that you'd go to.
Okay, so I would say the food industry.
Food.
Yeah, there was.
Everyone likes food, innit?
There was a burrito place in Newcastle, right? and this was years ago, and it was really small. And there was a guy who used to turn up with a van, and it was these. It wasn't burritos. It was these little flat things. What they called? They were like nachos, the soft nachos or whatever you call them. I can't remember what they were, but they were amazing. And this was before there was a lot of this stuff going on. And the guy who used to serve them was called Jesus, right?
Right.
And I remember saying to G, I was like, this guy's going places. Like, I feel like I should say to him, can I invest in your business?
Yeah.
I was just probably a bit too young at the time. And anyway, next thing you know, like a few years later, he's got these like stalls popping up everywhere.
So you fucked it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I should have moved. And like, I didn't have any interest in. I like to eat Mexican food.
Yeah.
But like, I want to like act more on that gut thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Whatever the
yeah.
industry is, and go go for it. Even if other people go, that's ludicrous.
Yeah.
It's just this guy.
Would that be more to scratch like a curiosity, or would it be like to get a good return?
I think I realise we've all got different strengths and weaknesses. There's a lot of things I don't get right, but I do think sometimes I'll just see something a little bit different. And there's times in my life where I've not acted on that, and then I've seen the results after and gone, why didn't I do something? So yeah, maybe it is that curiosity, but trying to do that a bit more and act on it.
Cool. Residential. You probably need a little bit more context, but just in general, buy versus rent.
Buy versus rent. I'm buy, but I understand why people would rent. My quick answer would be, I think it depends what else you've got going on.
Yeah.
I bought, but only because we were going to rent. We were going to sell our last house and move into rented, because now we've got a portfolio that can cover.
When you made the transition, you moved down to Cheshire? Was you renting or did you buy a place?
We bought. I got a mortgage based on my corporate income and then left the job.
Oh, you did. Oh, so you didn't mention it.
Yeah.
You didn't mention you just leave it.
Well, no. I mean, basically, I was able to borrow as much because I was on decent income.
Got you.
And then I gave myself the challenge. I had to get back up to that income through property. So
yeah. If you can name three biggest benefits of investing in property.
Freedom of time, freedom of choice, and I would say the third thing would be...
You started well there.
Freedom of time, freedom of choice, and helping people. And I know that sounds generic, but I mean literally from being able to provide work to tradespeople that have now
Right.
become friends, and we know, through to allowing somebody to rent your property even if they don't pass the affordability test. You know, being in that position to be able to do
like
stuff. That's cool.
Yeah. One mistake you see people make in property.
Believing too much of what they see online. Yeah.
You feel like they've got experience
Yeah,
it for themselves.
I think it's intoxicating, isn't it? Social media.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it's hard, you know, even when you try and share the highs and lows, it's like, I think it still gives people this view that it's a bit easier than it is.
Yeah. What does success mean to you or look like to you?
Being a great husband, being a great father, being an okay property investor.
What if you're not a husband or a father?
Yeah. Also, like advice to general people.
Just in general, no, for you, what does success look like for you? But without the father and husband, because maybe someone's not a father or a husband.
I think waking up each day knowing that I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and where possible I can make a difference in other areas.
Yeah, nice. Smashed it.
That's right.
No, thanks for coming on, man. No, really good chat. Thanks
Cheers,
for coming
buddy.
on.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Thank you. But we had to put the cameras back on because I forgot to ask you about the fox.
Fox.
So every episode I get a guest to bring an ornament for the shelf.
Yeah.
You brought the fox. Do you want to talk about that?
So the story of the fox. I love foxes.
Do you want to hold it while you're telling it?
Fox is in my company name, Capstone Fox, and it comes back to the letter that I got from my dad. So my dad's property development company was creatively called Tony Sullivan Developments,
Right.
but his logo was a fox, and he says in the letter that he wrote to me, he says a fox is a great logo for a property business because a fox will wait all night for the toad to come out the hole before it strikes, and that's the patience, cunning, and timing that you need to be successful in property.
I love that. So when you're out there like trying to find properties, are you like feeling like a fox?
Yeah. And sometimes you got to be a bit of a pest. So yeah, that's it. And anytime I see a fox as well, you know, I always think they're great animals. I think of my dad. I think of that quote, and yeah. So,
I love that.
There's the
No,
fox.
that's nice. That's nice to end on. Perfect.